Leon is arguably the most recognizable face of Resident Evil as far as the main characters go. Probably because he's the protagonist of the most celebrated game in the franchise, or maybe because he's the lead character in both of the canon movies made based on the game. Regardless, when most people think of Resident Evil, they think of either him or Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. Okay, granted, there are a lot of main characters here in this franchise, but only Leon would say,
"Where's everyone going? Bingo?"
And that's gonna count for something. The funny part about Leon is that when he first encountered the zombies in Resident Evil 2, it was his first day on the job as a rookie policeman. That's unlucky as hell.
You're a cop, right?
Yeah, first day on the job.
He had just graduated from the police academy and was eager to start his life on the force. At the age of 21, he requested to be positioned in Raccoon City since the rumors of bizarre murders happening in the Arklay Mountains interested him. You have to understand that the whole thing about zombies happening in the city was very hush-hush at this point. Really, only insiders knew what was happening, and it had only been happening for a few weeks in very low amounts.
That guy's a maniac. Why'd he bite me?
Maybe your creepy grandmother turned uglier than normal and bit her dog. Or maybe that creepy neighbor was making stronger moaning sounds than usual. It wasn't really something to be that concerned about until those last few days in September when the zombies really started to hit town. When Leo came into the city, he wasn't even expecting there to be a virus outbreak at all. He just kind of found it in the middle of the city. But then a great hero was born between the mists of death. And this is where Resident Evil 2 happens. Watch my Let's Play of Resident Evil 1 to see what happens in the first game, but this is a couple of months after that game. Regardless, Leon does survive the zombie apocalypse in the city, escaping via train at the end of the game and quarantined by the authorities outside for questioning. You see, after the city was bombarded, nobody truly knew what we were up against, except a very few people, and that included Leon. Leon was one of the only people in the world with actual experience fighting zombies, and the government found a use for that. And this is when Leon went from a rookie police officer in his first day of work to the White House, working directly for the government as a special agent, training under their supervision and being sent on special missions that incorporated zombies. This is the reason why he's been sent every now and again on these crazy missions during the games. This includes 4 years later being sent into South Africa to fight a drug lord who apparently got a hold of the T-virus, a story that is told in Dark Side Chronicles for the Wii. Which obviously means nobody has played it. Anyways, that mission is the only playable mission we know of Leon after the Raccoon incident and before Resident Evil 4. So you know it, now comes everyone's favorite, Resident Evil 4.
Son of a...
Everyone loved this game. I loved this game.
We've prepared a special ritual for you.
Even after I stopped playing the remake of Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube because I was literally too scared to even finish it, this is what got me back into the franchise after missing the last 2 games, and it's the reason why I'm still so into Resident Evil today. Nintendo Power gave it a perfect 10 and gave it their Game of the Year award. It even ranked number 2 in their top 200 games list, featuring the best games ever on Nintendo consoles, only behind Ocarina of Time. Later, they ranked it the second best game of the decade, being beaten only by Mario Galaxy. The official PlayStation magazine gave it Game of the Year, Game Informer gave it a perfect score and gave it the Game of the Year award as well. Spike TV Awards gave it Game of the Year as well as alongside GameSpot. This is incredible. The game is good. That's really all I want to say. Following his great display and success in South America back in Dark Side Chronicles, Leon was promoted to protect the president and his family.
Anyway, you know what this is all about. My assignment is to search for the president's missing daughter.
What? All by yourself?
This might actually sound like a demotion going from a special agent to bodyguard, but regardless, Leon's lack of luck didn't end there. As soon as he takes the job of protecting the family of the president's daughter gets kidnapped.
Story of my life.
So Leon gets sent to Spain where intel suggests she might have been taken, and this is where Resident Evil 4 begins. You can already see the pattern here and the main difference between the main characters of Resident Evil. Leon is a special agent, a lackey I guess. He follows the commands of the government and wrecks shit where he's sent, whereas Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine are more of the environmentalist kind, as they go specifically where the zombies are to eradicate them. Oh, and Ada? Well, she kinda does her own thing. We'll deal with her later. Anyways, Leon managed to save the president's daughter, giving him more reputation within the government, to the point where he becomes the first man to be notified of any incident revolving bioterrorism within the United States, and when such an incident occurs, he's the very first man to be sent to control it. Which is exactly what happens next, just a year later when there's a T-virus outbreak on an airport in Harvardville. This is where the movie Resident Evil Degeneration picks up. To give you guys some context, this is after Resident Evil Revelations 1, but before Resident Evil 5. I know it is a little confusing, just kind of figuring out where every game and every movie kind of fits in this chronological order, but just don't freak out here, I'll make a video for that specifically. Anyways, it was seeming that people were staging T-virus outbreaks as presentations for potential buyers of the virus to showcase their power that it possessed. Thankfully stopped, of course, by Leon in the movie. 6 years later, however, is when the next movie takes place, Resident Evil Damnation, when a country in Eastern Europe is fighting a rebellion and sightings of B.O.Ws are seen during the fight. Leon is taken away from his vacation to deal with this issue, pretty much showing just how important he is to the government and how much they respect his skills at dealing with zombies and B.O.Ws. After dealing with the B.O.Ws in the Eastern Slav Republic, just 2 years later is when the last Resident Evil game picks up in Resident Evil 6. So that's pretty much the background of who Leon is as a character and everything that he's been through in the games.
Are you out of your mind?
I knew you'd be fine if you landed on your butt.
You...
Believe it or not, however, he wasn't meant to be like this when he was first designed. Back in the production of Resident Evil 2, Leon was actually supposed to look like this. This was the original model for the game before it was scrapped. In the end, it was decided to not go this route and remake the character because they felt like he looked too similar to Chris Redfield. The girl that is often seen with him in these images was Elsa Walker, who was supposed to be his companion during the beta version of the game. She was also scrapped and turned into Claire Redfield. Leon's old design, however, would be later repurposed for the cover art for Resident Evil Gaiden. Or is it Gaiden? I don't even know. This beta version is colloquially known as Resident Evil 1.5, which held an entirely different story and gameplay elements than that of the final version of the real Resident Evil 2. The reason it was revamped so far in development was because the developers weren't too happy with the overall feel of the game and took a major risk in trashing the whole thing and starting from scratch. Just as an example of one of the differences between the two, in the beta version, Leon had been fighting the zombie outbreak from the very beginning while inside of the city, while on the canon Resident Evil 2 story, he gets there without even knowing that there is an attack, while the city had been in an attack for a while now. The second swarm of iterations that Leon went through were for Resident Evil 4. You see, it was first planned for Leon to be the one entering the second Spencer mansion instead of Chris and Jill, but they decided to wait for that and give him the game in Spain. They ended up giving the mansion raid to these two in the DLC for Resident Evil 5, Lost in Nightmares. Now, even more amazingly, while Resident Evil 4 was being produced, the style of the game and the art for the game became more and more different from what Resident Evil had been at the time. They had focused so much on making it a cool action game, and they had focused so much on changing the mechanics of the zombies into something different like mutations or supernatural beings, that in the end they simply said, fuck it, and changed the name of the game from Resident Evil to Devil May Cry. Yup, how fun is that? Pretty cool that Dante from the game was partially what Leon would have looked like in the Resident Evil 4 game. Also, later when they decided to make Resident Evil 4, the one that is more akin to the other games, instead of being injected with the last plague as in Resident Evil 4, Leon was supposed to be infected with the progenitor virus instead, which would give him hallucinations of supernatural enemies. But again, they held back on trying to make it too different from the originals and simply made it a parasite that had a different effect on humans. Something that was different than the first zombies of the first Resident Evil games, but that it was still different and a little bit more special for the newer crowd. Now, as far as his romance options in the games, well, he's kind of a womanizer, I suppose.
You know, you're kind of cute without those glasses. Give me your number when I get back.
May I remind you that you're still on duty?
He seems to have an on and off thing with Claire Redfield where they just really care about each other, but it never amounts to anything and they always go their separate ways in the end. Then you have Ada, which keeps on appearing on like literally every game and movie Leo is in, where there's always some suggestive or flirty scenes stuck in there. A lot of cinematics kind of make it a little bit obvious that they both have a thing for each other, but Ada never relents in being hard to get.
She's more than just a friend, isn't she? You have feelings for her.
Then you have the girl from the first movie who they kind of kiss, but not really because he was giving her oxygen underwater. And then they kind of set up a date at the end of the movie, but she was never seen again, so I guess he just never called her back. And then you have the other one from Resident Evil 6, and then you have Ingrid Hannigan, who Leon keeps having to flirt all the time, but she keeps rejecting him. I mean, come on, Leo, get your shit together.
Women.
If only he could be more like Chris and Jill, because those two are like super adorable together. Anyways, guys, that's it for Leon Scott Kennedy. Yep, that's his actual middle name. I hope you all found this interesting or entertaining. Be sure to check my Resident Evil 1 Let's Play and my Revelations 2 Let's Play. They're pretty wild, and I'll see you all next time.
Very cute.